welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. The first two verses of the 27th Psalm read, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" David's strong testimony of the value of the believer's pathway has been a powerful source of courage and hope for generations in the ages since he put pen to paper. The scriptures teach us his life ran the gamut of human experiences and is well qualified to advise us that the benefit had been to him to have walked with God. Well, that'll benefit us as well. Look around you, friend. The only reason you can is because there's light. When the Bible speaks of light, it typically means the understanding that guides our moral perceptions. All of us see the world through the prism of our opinions. There are those who judge others based on the color of their skin, the language they use, or quite often the dollars in their pockets. Some people have been taught they're better than others, and many who believe they are worthless. None of us get our opinions right by ourselves. If what we have is a mishmash inherited from the culture of our times, the pseudo-heroes of the day, perhaps equally misguided parents, there's nothing we can look to from within ourselves that can bring our world into focus and help us discern the clear path of properly carrying out our life work and having a rational view of the world about us. Every one of us, need a light from someone who is above time and culture, who is the definition of right and wrong, who can teach us to value ourselves as he does, not too high, not too low. David said the Lord was his light. As perhaps Israel's greatest and in many ways most just king, he needed illumination from outside himself, for he declared his inward light was linked to his salvation, which we may roughly define as his capacity to succeed at the complex tasks of governing his people, maintaining his integrity as a wise and just ruler. So long as he walked in the light God had given him, he enjoyed that success. And when in later years his footsteps were dogged by failure, it was because he had allowed himself to be beguiled into unwise and unjust pleasures that tarnished forever his legacy. Although he faced lions, bears, and giants with impunity, although Saul's javelin never touched him, his own sin made a breach in the wall of salvation that God put around him. That's still the same way with us, too. David's next assertion in these verses is that God was the strength of his life. Many another has laid hold of that promise through the centuries and appropriated it to the needs of their own soul. For instance, the word translated strength in our King James Version is the word, and this is the verse, Martin Luther used to write his immortal hymn, "A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing, our helper he, amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing." You know about Martin Luther? He was one of the most influential figures in the history of Christianity. Hundreds of thousands came to hear his messages. Along with his other work, he translated the Bible into German, making it available for the first time to common people. The messages of Reformation he preached transformed the European continent and had much to do with the government structure of our United States. For the master ideas of the American Constitution, freedom of speech, separation of church and state, equality of humans before God and sanctity of human life, freedom of the press and of religion come directly from the Protestant Reformation fires that were ignited by this man of God and his company and swept through Europe. Luther's "A Mighty Fortress is Our God," with its roots clear back to David's Psalm, written some 2,300 years ago, became the anthem of the Reformation, echoed in worship services from that day to this, wherever Christians gather together. Its ancient message has stood the test of time because, like the other things that are in the Bible, it is true. And the Lord wants to be your fortress and mine today, just as he has been to our spiritual ancestors through the centuries. His power is ever the same. His grace is the same. If we follow in his footsteps, he will be our salvation, just as he was David's. Have you talked to him today?
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.